Hello and welcome back to The Halfway Point. If you've worked in general practice for any length of time, you'll know that change isn't something that happens occasionally, it's something we're constantly navigating. Whether it's workforce pressures, financial challenges, digital transformation, or even neighbourhood working. Changes across the wider NHS affecting primary care leaders across the country, and we're being asked to adapt faster than ever before. So the challenge isn't simply managing change, it's leading people through it. So to help explore this further, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Danielle Hann, who is one of the directors at GPMplus. Many listeners may remember us mentioning GPMplus previously when Andy King joined us on the podcast a few episodes ago. But today we're taking a deeper look at what it means to lead successfully during a period of significant change across general practice. So Danielle, thank you for joining me today. And it'd be great if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about GPMplus.
Yeah, it's great. Hi Ben, really pleased to be here today and talk to you about what we're doing. I say my name's Danielle. I'm a GP by background. I still do some clinical work as a locum. I was a partner for many years and stopped my partnership about 4 years ago due to just doing lots of other roles really. But through that, went through lots of changes, started in a medium-sized practice and we merged and became a super partnership. So I've navigated all those changes and I think one of my reflections, that change cycle just seems to be getting quicker and quicker.
Yes.
And I guess the constant in all of that is our workforce and looking after them, which is the ethos really behind GPMplus. So we started back in about 2019 when our local medical committee, one of the staff, Stacey, who's now a director in GPMplus, did a burnout survey. And that led to us appointing a bit of a wellbeing lead in the LMC. And then, later that year in 2020, we developed a community interest company to get grant funding, which was from our ICBs into wellbeing and resilience training for our local practices. That's where we're at, but with all those changes, we have no longer got any grant funding because all of that's gone. So we're busy sort of developing all of the bits of work streams that we've got really that support all members of the team within general practice.
Yeah, I highlight the point there, especially I was thinking when you were saying 2019, I was like, a year later, everything changed. And I think you've summed that up amazingly, how just the framework from the funding point of view changed.
Yeah.
So I suppose kind of then applying that into practices, and it might even be from a financial point of view, what are you seeing as some of the common themes across the practices at the moment, especially around change and any anxieties towards it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is, we do different things. So we've got the Healthy Practice Programme, which is a full 6-month programme that we do with a cohort of practices. And that looks at culture and change management and quality improvement. And the biggest theme that comes out of that is communication, and that communication between different teams. And so change is happening, but we sometimes forget to let everyone know and engage them and on board. And then from the mentoring side, it's probably more sort of that burnout and that struggling and managing, some of those changes and people looking for how do they change career, how can they craft their general practice career from that point of view. So those seem to be our biggest sort of themes, communication and burnout. Okay.
And are you seeing an increase in them, or is it kind of staying the same at the moment? What do you think from a big picture point of view?
Well, I think we're probably ironically seeing a decrease just because things are no longer funded for people to access our services. We have seen that bit of the dip because practices now have to fund themselves, or individuals need to fund themselves to access this. And I guess it's the same across all the areas. We're based in West Yorkshire and North Yorkshire, but we're seeing a lot of our resilience hubs going that were there since COVID, though that's all gone. We're just not seeing the support services available for people to access.
That's interesting. So it's not necessarily the problems resolved or not as common, for lack of a better phrase. Actually, it's the funding side of things. Yeah. Okay, so that's really interesting, because then that kind of leads back into the practices themselves, and kind of what do you feel are some of the big pressures that are leading to the burnout, for example? Let's look at that one first of all.
I suppose if I think about the non-clinical side, an event not so long ago with lots of practice managers, it was that real pressure that they said their frontline teams were seeing.
Right.
So from their reception team, the admin team, that constant having to deal with the pressures and not having the resources to give to patients, not having the appointments. And someone described it to me recently that they've got a really great team, but they just are getting a bit of that compassion fatigue and And that's really hard. And, we know that that's one of the signs of burnout. And they've come to us saying, what can we do that's different? What training can we do to our reception team, frontline staff, that keeps them in work? Because, we're competing, aren't we, with some of the supermarkets. My practice was next door to a supermarket. They'd say I could go and stack shelves for the same money.
Yeah, I know. And it used to be you would talk about all the other values in the practice, and then, as you said, with the funding, they're slowly decreasing. I know there's always the pension card that's I'm not taking that for granted at all, but that's money for tomorrow, the future.
Yeah.
If you're 18, 20, 25 and starting out, that's hopefully a long way away from when you would actually then need it. So how do you get through today and the current time with that? So kind of looking back at the primary care leaders then, are they being asked to do more than ever before, do you think, in general practice? And how's the best way to manage that, do you feel?
Yeah, I think they're being asked to do more and more, aren't they, with fewer and fewer resources, and still be able to deliver stuff. I mean, I always feel there's a big tension between delivering acute access, because that's the national sort of how do then we do the preventative care and the looking after people when we've got no resources. And I think what gets a bit lost is then the opportunity to taking that time out and that headspace to do staff development and training, because they're constantly being asked to chase those targets. And I think a lot of areas of the country are seeing their practice protected learning times disappear as well. And
I was thinking
that one afternoon a month was so important for team cohesion and learning, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've seen some great examples. A practice shared me recently, they hired an ice cream van for their learning. So like everyone was having almost a jolly with an ice cream before. That's not free. That's obviously a bit on the exaggerant side, but you know what I mean? It's just trying to do something different and then trying to get training in which is different.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great the work you're doing to, we've got our mandatory training, we have to do that, but actually can we use this protected time to do something different?
Yeah.
Look after ourselves and collectively, not just, like you said, you talked about reception and admin.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose from the management side of that then, what does good leadership look like during these periods of uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, we deliver a lot of stuff around compassionate leadership and talking, if anyone knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, look at themselves, doing all of that first. And actually we need to do that, and we need to model that as leaders, which is really hard to do.
Yes.
And we've all got experience of general practice and are either currently working in it or have worked in it. So we're not trying to say to people do stuff that isn't achievable. It's just trying to highlight that, if we don't look after ourselves, we can't look after our teams, and ultimately we can't look after our patients at that point.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I was just thinking about, I forget his name top of my head. I'll try and remember this when I put the show notes together, but quite a famous British marketer who does a whole thing on speed and how, you go an extra 10, 20 miles an hour, but once you're at 70, the impact is barely a minute on a journey time. And his point is around, when you're already going at top speed, there is no point pushing yourself because you'll only crash.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I saw it as a visual and realised what he was saying was, no, he's absolutely right. The lower speeds, you can put more effort in and that'll show a reward, but we've still got capacity at that stage to do it. But when you're 60, 70 miles an hour, you can't go any faster without figuratively and possibly literally crashing.
Yeah.
So I guess then on that note, how do we maintain or even gain momentum when staff are feeling stretched? There's longer term, isn't there? But are there quick wins that we can start today to try and open up the picture a little bit more so we can be approachable to new ways of working? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think from some of our experience through the Healthy Practice Programme, they're not big whizzy things that people have put in. They're really simple changes. Some of the examples we've had is, putting something we call the brag board, or other practices have called it other things, where you just get people to write down things that have gone well or stuff their colleagues have done. Because we've got this sort of 3-to-1 positivity ratio. We say 3 positive things for every negative thing we say to our colleagues. So how can we change that? How can we just get that gratitude and that kindness? Because that ripples out massively. So yeah, we're all about trying to do really simple, small things.
Yeah.
Rather than big, thousands of pounds worth of a whole change program.
We haven't got the money for that. Yeah. But yeah, to your point, we can get a notice board and a marker pen or some post-it notes. We can document the positive things there. And so did you see, just think of that example then, did the practice engage in it? Was it one of those one or two people did it and then lots of people did it? How did that kind of roll out across the practice?
Yeah, so I think if one or two people start it, then if you get mentioned in one, that feels really great. So then you think about, well, who else can I mention?
Oh, yeah.
Sort of ripple effect.
It's that positive smile thing, isn't it? Oh, that's really encouraging. And then I suppose does that trickle down further into then, the positive workforce on that bleeds through to the patients, and then they pick up on that as well. Is that what you find?
Yeah, you find with this, like say, so very simple changes, and some of our stuff we've seen a shift in culture within 6 months, which, doesn't feel possible because most we think culture changes take years and years. And some of what we do in that healthy practice program as well is we do what's called a temperature check survey during the 6 months. So we do a check-in on the staff on how they're feeling, what's your top 3 feelings. And
okay, yeah.
A week, so that really helps to measure some of these changes that practices implement, so you almost get real-time feedback into just gauging the temperature of the staff and the feelings.
I see what you mean. Staying in with the individuals almost and then picking up the bigger picture from there. So thinking of that then, communication, let's do that one with change, because that's, I suppose, being vulnerable myself, that's one of the things I always failed with when we're changing stuff. Is to communicate it properly and then, bring people on the journey. What's your kind of experience and any kind of top tips really on how to communicate and bring the team with you, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's all down to how you engage. So it's about getting everyone to buy into that ownership. We always suggest, can we get together as a team and just really think again, what are our values? What is our meaning behind what we do as individuals and then as a practice or a PCA? Level, and actually getting them to come up with the ideas at what might be better, because I think sometimes as we become leaders and we become further and further away from the front door, the shop floor as it were, it's hard to see those issues, and those teams have the answers. They just need that time and space and that thinking time, don't they, to come out with them. And then it's completing the circle, so saying, you said this, almost like you said we did type thing, these are the things that you've come up with, these were the solutions, these are the ones we have managed to put in place, and making sure we're just feeding that back the whole time. And then I think people feel really involved in the process and much less done to.
Got you. Okay. I suppose thinking about that then, these are all happy practice, happy staff, retention, and thinking about recruitment and retention. Is that what, are you seeing more kind of the more practices engage with programs like GPMplus, are they then keeping the staff longer? Do you find, or is just the turnover, it feels like you're always interviewing. There's always an interview for another position in practices at the moment. Is that something you're seeing?
So I guess we don't have the really long-term data on that. We've got some anecdotal stuff that practices have found an improvement, or, they haven't lost staff that they thought they might lose. They've carried on. Some of our first cohort of the Healthy Practice programme that went through this sort of change management process have actually come back in subsequent years to repeat their culture surveys to really
interesting
what's going on. So we're just going through a bit of a process of looking at that and evaluating those as well. I think they saw the value in it and they want to keep checking that they're still carrying on with.
That's what I was just going to ask. Yeah, what prompted them to come back? But because they saw the value in the first time, time has passed. They want to repeat the cycle every couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, in a way, I suppose putting your doctor hat on, then that comes into the GP appraisals, revalidation, that 3-year cycle for nurses, 5-yearly cycle for GPs.
Yeah.
Is it the same ethos, lack of a better word, that trying to stay refreshed, trying to stay on top of it, keeping motivation, I guess? Is it the same kind of style, do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. It's, I'm an appraiser as well for GPs, and I actually really value that time, because I think it's our one time a year we can sit and check in with ourselves, what we've done or what we want to do. And we'd also encourage every member of general practice staff to have sort of that well-being performance type appraisal, that aspiration, rather than probably do a bit more of job planning rather than appraising and getting down to that individual aspiration. So Yeah.
I slightly put you on the spot because you're talking about because of the appraiser side. Recently, we asked a question to a room of PMs, when was your last appraisal? And most weren't within the last year or two, let's put it that way. And I think one of the struggles with practice management is who actually does the appraisal.
Yeah.
Traditionally speaking, it would be a GP partner as the employer.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense because the practice manager would appraise the line managers and so on. But actually, on reflection, I think there's an art and a skill to being an appraiser. And from the clinical side, knowing the GP role and knowing how the individual is as well. Should there be something similar? Is there a way we can do something similar with practice management, do you feel?
We didn't talk about this before, but that is actually next on our sort of plan. So great minds.
Brilliant. That's really encouraging, actually.
Our wellbeing courses we run is how to have effective appraisals, and that's aimed at sort of non-GP staff, and it's aimed at partners or managers that are doing appraisals within their team. But 2 of our wellbeing leads actually are appraisal leads within NHS England, which is great in other roles. So we have got leads. But one of the programmes we are just developing actually is a practice manager appraisal, where the practices can come to someone like us at GPMplus and say, can you do a sort of external appraisal that's more independent, and just gives their practice manager that time and space to go through. Yeah. And because we also do the mentoring and we have lots of practice managers who are mentors as well, they'd probably be really good team members to do that because they get the job and they know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Having stepped away full time from the role, I've had a few where I've mentored, and I love it. It's so much fun, and selfishly you get something out of it as well.
Yeah.
And you learn new ways of working.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to touch on the mentorship actually, because what can practices do to develop future leaders within their teams? If there's what do you look out for, and then how do you, I suppose, make it flower?
Yeah. So I'm biased. I think mentoring is brilliant, but we've done various things, and I think, we're hoping there's some more funding coming through. So we've got an aspiring practice managers sort of fellowship program that's through our training hub, and we're doing the mentoring.
Oh, cool.
So trying to get in with new practice managers, because I don't know what it's like in your areas, but we're suddenly seeing a massive cohort coming up to retirement. And it feel like there's lots of people waiting in the wings, to take these roles on. And then we, mentoring at any stage of the career. And actually, our mentorship program is open to anyone who is a leader in a practice. Well, I would say most of our staff's a leader in the practice in some way, shape or form. So it's trying to get people to come in and really think about what they want and their career aspirations, and how do they keep themselves well and resilient and keep going. And I think that's why it's important that we've got peer mentors that are in all the professions as well, in general practice if we can. We've got nurses and optoms and dentists and pharmacists and practice managers, so it gives people a choice of who they want.
Yes, I see what you mean. And something you just said I was really encouraged by, the team, we started to refer to it in LPM as the primary care management team. So it's your PM, it's your ops, it's the admin leads, reception leads. It's not just one person. And, I love asking the question at the moment, even knowing the answer, but, can one person carry the entire responsibility of leading the practice? No, exactly. I can't even finish a sentence before you've cut me off. It's too much now. So to look at it as a team and look at how the roles have evolved, even post-COVID, on how practices are structured. So I think that's always something that's kind of like that first point of call is, if you are on your own in a practice, how do we get it so that you have a team behind you? And yes, there's money barriers, in the sense of recruitment or changing people's role and pay and everything like that. But I suppose the question to you guys is, does that come back over time in the support and the rewards of developing people and pushing other team members, pushing their skills up, and seeing that return come across to practice? Is that what you've seen, especially through like the mentorship programs and such?
I think so, and I strongly believe anybody who works in a practice really wants to have that meaning and ownership in their own job. It's one of our core things, isn't it? We come to work to have the ABC, the autonomy, the belonging, the competence. So the more we're empowering every member of our team to be accountable and responsible for what they do and feel like they have some autonomy over what they do. It doesn't stop structures and processes, but if we can give people that real meaning. I really worry for the single practice manager that has an open door and just who do they go to?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
constant open door or stream of people, it feels like.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think that's where, programs like you talk to, even if it's in a once a week, once a month mentoring capacity.
Yeah.
And talking to other local PMs and PCN managers, I've said before, we took an hour out each week and have a Teams call. The staff get to the point where they see the value in you sharing with other practices, and it would be the one time they would leave you alone for an hour each week, or they would say, "Can you ask the other practice when you catch up on Friday? Can you ask them this, and that?"
Yeah.
So I'm with you, and I think more and more, is seeing that team approach as opposed to the individual.
Yeah.
But that's a hard change, I suppose, especially if you've done the job for years and it has always been you and say the partners. So I suppose in a way is how do you adapt that change then? So if you acknowledge it should be a team, what do you do next?
Yeah, and I think that's part of any sort of change management, isn't it? It's about how do you then bring that team along, and some of it has to be in training, some of it has to be in people seeing the importance of it. I think it comes back to what we said earlier about as well, if you're all working to that same values, and we can spend hours, can't we, writing a mission statement, writing our values, but actually you just probably want a bit of a, what would someone say, this is a good place to work, and that's the vision statement you're all working to. And then I think you need to allow it to happen, and that's right. Really hard. I think it's delegating, isn't it, and allowing people to make their own mistakes and do their things in their own way.
Oh, the D word. Yeah, something that everyone aspires to and then always struggles with, I find. But it's true, isn't it? Especially when it's your baby or it's your project, it's your whatever it is. It's hard to delegate that, and letting and giving people the space to fail and learn in the same way that you were given the space to fail and learn is how I see it.
Yeah.
And then I suppose as well, that then goes full circle. You then got the space to look after yourself and develop your own learning or support mechanisms, like you mentioned earlier, which hopefully in turn will then support everyone around you. So, and I suppose just looking further, where are we going in the next couple of years? Neighbourhood is the big thing. Is there, and obviously that's a big change in its own right, and so you need to break it down and everything like that. But do you think, is there a possibility of neighbourhood working for greater collaboration and new possibilities within our own existing teams and structures? What's kind of your thoughts around the new neighbourhood style?
Yeah, I think so. I think we see a lot of it. I don't know what it's like in other areas, but our areas, our PCNs and community partnerships are quite strong. Lots of our practices might approach us for a service and say we probably couldn't afford it individually, but we're going to do it as a PCN, or, there's a lot of that sharing going on. We'd love it if there was a staff wellbeing lead in every neighbourhood that's looking out, that would be the ideal, and those wellbeing champions, because I think we do it really well for patients, and somehow there's a disconnect of how we then do that really well for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
So I think, the only constant is going to be that change.
Yeah.
And the same people will still be there. So it's how do we encourage, all of our teams, how do we look after ourselves and our teams around us to navigate that change? And it is, isn't it? It's that true definition of resilience, that bounce back ability. We're not trying to make people tolerant of a really toxic environment. We're like, how do we go, right, there's a sudden change, right, what have we got? What tools in our toolbox to bounce back and keep looking after ourselves despite it.
Okay. I suppose a nice question, I guess. What excites you the most about the future of general practice? So, like, with your experience in the background and looking at neighbours and everything, what's upcoming? What excites you about the future?
So, I think, because I'm at that stage of my career where, I've done full-time clinical practice every week, I've burned out, I've bounced back and things like that. But actually, it is knowing what I know now and all these different things is I really love doing my clinical sessions now.
Interesting.
And okay. Because I do fewer of them because I'm really busy doing all of this.
Yeah.
But actually, it doesn't fill me with horror anymore if I had to go back and do several days a week.
Okay.
I actually enjoy it. I feel I've got time for those patients because I feel better in myself. And I think we can do that and we can make it sustainable for everyone that works in general practice. And some of that that needs to come with funding, but there's lots and lots of simple things that we can do to change that. And I think what I've seen is actually just the passion and the enthusiasm we get for well-being. So we'll still sometimes get, oh, it's the soft stuff, but actually we're not seeing that. We're seeing that a lot less. People are genuinely engaged and want to do it.
So they're seeing the value in it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a really interesting observation then, because I was always skeptical of well-being. I've openly said before, and then the more I lent into it, the more it helps you. I think taking the time out. I suppose one kind of follow-up then on that is, if you could give I suppose a small bit of advice to the PMs listening, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I always come back to a slide that we often present on one of our courses, is that, any interaction you have with anyone, be kind, be curious, and invest in the time to have proper conversations, which I think is a really nice summary of actually what we could do for, all of our teams,
Yeah, I like that. That's a poster, isn't it? That's in the staff room in the PM's office. Thank you again, Danielle. That's been really thought-provoking conversation today, and it's easy to become consumed by whatever that next challenge is, the next deadline, next piece of guidance, whatever is in our inbox. So, and I think kind of picking up on it feels leadership isn't about surviving that change. It's helping people navigate it and finding the opportunities within it, which hopefully then in turn creates the practices and the staff to remain resilient no matter what comes next. So thank you again for joining us, Danielle. We'll put the info about GPMplus in the show notes and the programmes that we've talked about today. But once again, thanks for joining me. Thank you all for listening. Hope you have a good week, and we'll see you next time at the Halfway Point. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of The Halfway Point. We hope today's conversations have given you a fresh inspiration and practical ideas you can take straight back into your practice. You will find all the links and resources we mentioned in the show notes at locumpm.co.uk. The Halfway Point is available on all major podcast platforms in both audio and video formats, so you can tune in however suits you best. If this episode helped you, we would generally love to hear from you. Leave us a review or a comment. Not only does it make our day, it also helps us shape future episodes around what matters most to you. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you do not miss next Wednesday's episode. And if you know a colleague who would benefit from this conversation, please share this episode with them. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook by searching for the Locum Practice Manager. We're on YouTube too, where we share practical tips and tutorials for primary care managers. Until next time, keep moving forward, keep improving, and we'll see you again next week at the Halfway Point.